hidden hand that we don't quite know what the agenda is.
Well, I think you're correct. I think people in the United States, 50 or 60, according to polls, maybe 60% of the population believe they woke up and they found the country in the last 3 years unrecognizable.
But communism has never worked. It's simply the communists begin by stopping freedom of speech, imprisoning their opponents, and then killing them. And that's what they did in Russia. That's what they did in China. There isn't a single communist state that's successful. There never has been.
Let me tell you, and it's the craziest thing. The more I look at it, and you're absolutely right. Here we are, almost 3.5 years later, and more information keeps coming out. I'm the only chief of police in the United States of America that has a law from Congress that says I have to go to the Sergeant Arms and congressional leadership to request support. I requested the National Guard twice on Sunday, January 3rd. I was denied twice by the two Sergeant Arms who are politically appointed.
So this is what they said in September 21, and now the Australian government in June of 2025 goes the other way. My point is, are we at some form of thalidomide moment, perhaps? Or are we looking at something else to go from one extreme to the other extreme when it comes to vaccines? Should we have had a little bit more time back then to say, maybe we need to second guess ourselves, maybe?
Good points. I do not know. As I said, I had umpteen vaccines. I'm glad I did. I only had COVID once, but your points are well taken.
Hello and welcome to a brand new era in independent news. This is Channel 51. My name is Jason Olborn, and I also am known as Jason Q Citizen. And the purpose of this independent news show is to bring you news from around the world and show you in real time the real facts as they are coming about, who is saying what, and then being able to determine, by putting my Jason Q Citizen hat on, the direction in which we are headed, and if we are headed in the right direction. And will that mean the end of everything we've come to know and love, and peace, freedom, love and mung beans? Or are we going down into the 1984 nightmare that's been coming at us for many years? So what we'll do today is we will get started in this brand new edition. And the first story for today concerns Tanya Plibersek. And she was asked about whether or not Labor will look to overturn new work from home legislation being introduced in Victoria to enshrine 2 days of work from home. And is it going to be something that they were going to let the Victorian government do, or is it something that they are going to support as well? She said, we're making it very clear that we support work from home at a federal level as long as it can be done sensibly in negotiation between employers and employees, she said to Sunrise. We've got a lot of public servants, for example, who work a couple of days a week from home, and it's supported productivity. Meanwhile, we've also learnt that the ADF is saying that its recruitment drive is actually working. We'll play this short clip now to give you an update.
The ADF's attempt to appeal to Generation Z appears to be working as recruitment figures reach a decade high. Recent advertisements have been focused on younger people through video game platforms as well as social media, TikTok, etc. The targeted ads have been based on advice from media agency Universal McCann, which has been paid more than $170 million to do so. The new recruitment numbers mean the ADF is on track for its target of 69,000 permanent workers by 2030.
Meanwhile, the Productivity Commission is warning that the cost of net zero is going up. No surprise there. But it does mean that there is pressure now being put on to the Albanese government and Treasurer Jim Chalmers.
The Productivity Commission is warning the net zero transition may cost more than expected. The advisory body suggests greater government intervention if Labor's climate targets are to be met. Increased incentives and carbon pricing are among other suggestions. The matter is expected to be a topic of focus during Jim Chalmers' Economic Reform Roundtable in a few weeks' time.
Well, there you go. So there is a roundtable and economic reforms being discussed, and therefore the challenge is in And is this the only approach that's going to be on the table? Is it going to be a case of blinkers, wind and solar, or is it going to be a case of we have to look at other options, including nuclear, and whether or not coal is going to be put back on the agenda, if it is truly about cost of living, or if it's just about the government reaching what it wants to do in terms of its government agenda? Well, meanwhile, at the weekend, you might not have seen, but most people have already, that there was considered to be 100,000 people or more protesting for Palestine in Sydney and in Melbourne. And these were led by Julian Assange, who was my tip and still is for first president of Australia one day. And he was there with Bob Carr and others. So let's dig into this report now we'll take some from Sky News. We'll come back for some analysis and some other updates as well.
Hamas says it's ready to deliver Red Cross aid to hostages it's holding in Gaza after releasing video of an emaciated hostage over the weekend. But it's called for Israel to permanently open humanitarian corridors before it will do so. Hospitals say another 33 Palestinians have been killed whilst trying to access aid in Gaza. Australia has committed a further $20 million of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Foreign Minister Penny Wong confirmed the additional aid will be provided, bringing Australia's contribution to $130 million. The Senator has reiterated calls for the end of the war in Gaza and for Israel to improve the flow of aid into the enclave. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is seeking a phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu. The federal government is considering whether to join a growing list of international allies in formally recognising Palestinian statehood. The UK, France and Canada are among the countries who have flagged support for Palestine in previous weeks. Up to 100,000 pro-Palestinian protesters defied the wet weather to march across Sydney's Harbour Bridge yesterday in what they described as a march for humanity. As promised, the event was peaceful, but a series of confusing text messages from police left the crowd unsure of where the march would finish. Thousands also filled the streets of Melbourne as part of a protest wave, which shows no signs of slowing.
So the stage is now being set, and the Australian government is being, well, at least put pressure on to determine whether it will follow UK and France's lead in supporting a Palestinian state. So there is a said line in the sand. Now, that means that you have UK, France, possibly Australia. So we are looking at countries that are following the globalist pathway to support Palestine. Meanwhile, in the US, things are taking a different turn. Here is Speaker Mike Johnson. He's gone straight to Israel and the Wailing Wall. Take a look.
Mike Johnson, the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives in America. We're here with a delegation of members of the House. We're so grateful to be in Israel, particularly on this day, recognizing the destruction of the two temples and 2 times in history. But it is such a moving time for us to be here at the Wailing Wall. We've offered our prayers, we put our notes into the wall as just traditional, and we're so moved by the hospitality of the people and the great love of Israel. Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel, and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do. It's a matter of faith for us and a commitment that we have. God bless you.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has said that he will not and cannot support terrorism. And the support from the mainstream news and here in Australia is to give the hostages back. And Hamas, of course, has resisted it up until this stage and hasn't done so, as we've now seen. So there's a weighing up, isn't there, between the support for removing or releasing the hostages, the Israeli hostages taken, and those that are being killed in the war against the Palestinians, which is a war against Hamas. So there is no win situation here, but there is a choice to be made. Meanwhile, Trump, being interviewed last week, he was talking about Epstein. Now, he's now calling for the release. And of course, this lines up that pushes back against Israel. Let's take a look.
That shouldn't be heard. Yeah. And I would assume that was why he was there. I want to release everything. I just don't want people to get hurt. You can't have people associated. First of all, the files were run by some very bad people and very sick people like Comey and Lisa, the whole group, you know, all those people in that office. They ran those files for 4 years. And if they were going to use the files, they would have used it before my election, because unless they're stupid, which to a certain extent they are stupid.
You're saying they would have released the information.
Well, they had the files. They
election.
control the files.
Yes.
I didn't control the files. They controlled the files for 4 years. So if they had something, they would have released it before the election, because they are not geniuses, but, you know, they're evil.
Right.
There are a lot of evil people.
So Trump, a master of switching the narrative. Now, many of us are wondering when it will be that the mainstream news will start to catch on with what is going on, because it's hit piece after hit piece and narrative control. Well, let's now cut to CNN and for their interpretation of the effectiveness of the Trump administration.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century, and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking the United States of America.
How about that, huh? So, CNN is now telling you that Trump is the most effective presidency or administration in 100 years. Meanwhile, over at Fox, they're telling us that Jack Smith, he's under investigation under the Hatch Act.
This is a Fox News alert. Former special counsel Jack Smith is under investigation by the Office of the Special Counsel. That's a government watchdog agency that investigates Hatch Act violations. The Hatch Act is a law that prevents government employees from engaging in political activities. This is not a criminal investigation, but we'll keep you updated on any further development.
Many people are wondering what is the progress in terms of the allegations and put out there by Donald Trump recently, when he was saying some very, very severe, making some very, very severe posts, such as it's time to indict Obama, the traitor for treason, from Trump's own Truth Social page, therefore giving way more information last week about treason, the spies who lie. And this has been blowing up and blowing up and blowing up for some time now. So at the weekend, here is Stephen Miller talking to Fox News' Maria Bartiromo.
The Russia collusion hoax against President Trump remains the single greatest hoax and the greatest assault on our democracy in the history of this country. There's no comparison. There's no parallel to anything else. It was a coup. And I'm using that term literally. It was a coup to overthrow a democratically elected government, a coup carried out by the intelligence apparatus of this country, by the deep state, by Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party. The new information that has been revealed by the Director of National Intelligence and by the FBI eliminates any scintilla of doubt about the intention, the premeditation, the planning and orchestration of this conspiracy. It meets all of the criminal elements of a seditious conspiracy against the United States. It meets the criminal elements of an insurrection. It meets the criminal elements of a conspiracy against the government and the criminal elements of a conspiracy to deprive citizens of their civil rights under color of law. One egregious felony after another. And because it is a conspiracy, as demonstrated by the forethought of realizing and documenting that they understood that this was fake from the beginning, meeting the mens rea standard in law. Because of that, because it is a conspiracy, every single individual actor is now part of that conspiracy. So that includes Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Hillary and Schiff and everybody else who knowingly and willfully perpetrated this plot, this coup, this conspiracy, this scheme against President Trump and the government of the United States. And now is the time and the hour and the moment for accountability so that we can reclaim this democracy, Maria.
Many people will be going, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And for those that have been following on for at least 10 years now, since that moment that Trump came down the escalator at Trump Tower, and for those of us who've been following even earlier, back to April of 2015, when Bernie Sanders announced that he would be running for the presidency after Obama's second term in office. So it has been a very, very long haul to get here, the best part of 10 years or more so far. Will there be arrests? That is the big question. And many people believing that you can't beat City Hall. But we have a real information war at hand, and the sides now are being divided quite evenly, if you will, when you go back to what we saw in Sydney, of all places, that has more or less created history. Some people saying, well, That's why the protests were attempting to be suppressed, but they were allowed to happen. And the numbers of people crossing the Harbour Bridge in Sydney were considered to be quite massive. Now, mostly peaceful is the term that you'll get, and we haven't heard of any really bad things that have gone on, but there was a protest there led by the darling of those of us who are following for absolute fact and truth, Julian Assange. Well, he's walking on the path of the Palestinians. Meanwhile, the globalists, the UK, France, Canada, pushing for Australia, which seems almost likely, but Albanese is balancing his act right now, calling for a phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu. Can't get one with Trump, trying to get one with Netanyahu. What's that phone call going to be about? Hey, Bibi, I heard that the Palestinians, well, there is a push against you. So what are you going to do? And here in Australia, we're going to give you an ultimatum one way or another. Doesn't quite make sense, does it? I feel like Albanese is stalling, particularly after what happened last week here in Australia when Kash Patel, it was reported by the ABC, had visited secretly Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke. What was that really about? And why would he then be heading to New Zealand to set up the FBI's office in New Zealand? Is he aware of something? Is the plot thickening in relation to Russiagate? And who is in the frame? Comes down always to one name, Hillary Rodham Clinton. And she's been given, well, I'll tell you what, more hall passes than the entire high school situation that all of us have been through. But Trump, he was asked again. Let's take a look at this interview over the weekend that came through and see where he is at on this thinking right now. Is the finger pointing at the wife of President Clinton?
These new emails, Mr. President, suggest essentially that Hillary Clinton personally approved the Russia hoax.
With Obama.
With Barack Obama. And my question is she finally going to pay for what she did, or does she get a pass again?
So, we had her, and I had her right under the sights, and I told the people, look, you can't do this to a president's wife, an ex-president, and she was Secretary of State, but you can't do this to the wife of a president. And
do you still feel that way?
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about it in a sec. If you remember, I was at a rally, and it was after the election, and they said, lock her up, and I said, no, look, we won, just relax. And I didn't do what other people would have done, what they would have done. And then they went after me, and they meant it. I said, it's amazing. I always felt that you shouldn't be doing this stuff, and I let Hillary off the hook. I totally left her off the hook, and then I let her off the hook for what? And then I come in, and they did the same thing to me. The difference is they actually meant it, and they hurt a lot of people, and it was all a hoax, and now they have it in black and white. No, I think they should pay a price.
How directly?
By the way, it's a very big price. It could be the biggest scandal in the history of our country, but it continues onward, and that continues onward. That scandal has continued from the...
So there you have Donald Trump saying now, pointing the finger at Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and saying that they must pay a heavy price. So where are we right now? At the weekend, it's Israel versus Palestine played out on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So people have taken a line in the sand. Are they going to support Palestine with the backing of the globalists, or are they going to support Trump and therefore the support, as Speaker Mike Johnson said, Israel? So it really will look like it's going to be biblical. Now, many people will be conflicted. They will say, well, I support Trump, but I don't support Israel. I support Trump and I don't support the slaughter of children in Palestine. I support nationalism against globalism, but I don't want to see children starving in Gaza. And this is why it is ugly, and this is why it is nasty. And eventually, one will have to choose a side. But the thing is, when you see the way it's been playing out now, it's always been the nationalist versus the globalist, and it's always been Israel versus Palestine. But there is the ability to be able to move freely between the two camps, and we'll see how this is going to play out. But it is a massive, massive time now in history. So what I think we should do, and thank you everyone, of course, for supporting independent media. You may be listening to this on WRMI radio coming out of Florida. You might be watching it on the Cafe Lockdown Network as your evening news, or of course, you could be watching it right here at channel51.com.au. And I thank everyone for their support of independent media as we try and put the news of the day and the facts and interpret what it means for us. We are certainly seeing things come to a head. Massive change is just on the horizon. Now, if you would like to support independent media, I would be most grateful. And this is how you can do it. You can simply subscribe at channel51.com.au right there. That will take you through to the official Substack page. And if you want to, you can also subscribe and become an annual plan holder. And we're having a special for the month of August. Instead of $75 to celebrate the launch of Channel 51, it'll be $51 for an annual plan. And that works out at just 98 cents a week to support independent media and Jason Olborn and all those that will join the team in the coming months to be part of this particular venture as we determine the truth for all of us. And you'll see there'll be access to various different interviews, all of the news shows and all of the back catalogue material that's quite massive of some 700 interviews that I've done in the past with people like TNT, A&R, even some of the World Series news interviews, and there's a massive one coming out in September. So let's continue now. We are going to talk about what comes next. So Russiagate is in the frame. Israel and Palestine yet to be resolved. Calls for Hamas to remove the hostages and give them back. And at that point, that means that Israel can back off at the same time and the war can finally come to its conclusion. It's all happening at the exact same time. Well, just to show you how crazy the world really is, I want to show you some interesting observations out there. Here is some Q posts that match up. So Chuck Grassley, there, 2nd of August 2025 on his Twitter, transparency brings accountability. Then you go to a Q post and it says transparency brings accountability. What were the odds and what was the convenient part of that? Well, let's have a look at what Kash Patel's been able to put together. He's tweeted recently, in 2017-18, I proved the Steele dossier was fictitious intelligence weaponized by corrupt FDI officials to deceive a federal judge and unlawfully spy on then presidential candidate Trump's campaign, all paid for by his opponent. The media called me a liar. Now I'm the FBI director. We just uncovered burn bags, rooms filled with hidden Russiagate files, including the Durham Annex, and declassified them. Once again, I released the prior FBI's own documents and exposed the truth. The same media is calling me a liar again. Maybe this FBI will release more docs directly from FBI HQ so we can see who is lying. Wouldn't want to deprive the fake news of more bogus Pulitzers. Well, they are harsh fighting words from Kash Patel. Well, here's another one for you. Across all major MSM networks, full visibility has many advantages, right on schedule. And look at the date, August the 3rd, 2018, 7 years ago to the day. If you want to check out this one to blow people's minds, this is again, what is QAnon, the conspiracy theory showing up to Trump rallies? Well, it's all putting it together. Now, no one knows when the first arrest will come, and Clandestine has talked about it here. The answer is when the public are ready. Trump and his team are not declassifying these Russiagate revelations just for fun. The public have to be briefed before high-profile arrests. The public must be aware and prepared for what is going to happen. Otherwise, the shock and backlash could be catastrophic and a legitimate threat to national security. Civil uprisings, riots, chaos, etc., getting rid of USAID was important to mitigate this and prevent nationwide Soros-funded riots. The public must understand why these people are being arrested. The public have been conditioned to trust and believe in many of these people. The psychological blow is going to be extremely difficult to stomach for millions. They will deny, reject, lash out, etc., and this phenomenon on a large scale could have significant ramifications. Trump and his team have mechanisms to accurately message, gauge public perception, and they have a realistic timeline in mind for when public arrests will be feasible. As for when that will be, I have no idea. I just stick to what we can control, and what we can control is spreading the word as much as possible, continuing to show all the facts related to Russiagate and the ongoing coup against POTUS, and do our part to move the needle of public perception. Our mission is to combat the propaganda within the corrupt MSM, awaken, guide the public, and win in the court of public opinion. So there is a lot going on right now. And the true believers will see, as Clandestine said, it is coming. Nothing can stop it, it seems, right now. Now, where to from here? So, Clandestine once again reports that what he says is that even though Russiagate was one of the most egregious crimes ever committed, it pales into comparison to what they did in 2020. And after the Russia hoax failed, they quickly transitioned to COVID. That's right. COVID is where we go after Russiagate. Let's have a look at his post. So once the public have digested Russiagate, have seen that a deep state exists, and have seen that the MSM are corrupt, there will be more willing to believe the disturbing revelations about COVID. Then once the public are told the truth about the man-made origins, why Fauci's pardon began in 2014, Ukraine mail-in ballots, and the masses will not much just be demanding justice in the US, but worldwide. And we're not talking about treason and sedition. We are talking about international crimes against humanity, which is an entirely different ballgame. It would be likely to be above the jurisdiction of the Department of Justice. And there are other countries' militaries who have been demanding justice for COVID-19, namely Russia, who directly alleged Obama, Clinton, Biden and Soros are the main ideologues responsible for the creation of COVID-19 and the US bioweapon network. The same people who Trump said allegedly is behind the Russia hoax. They are the same people. Trump and Putin both want to prosecute the same people. If you think Trump and Putin have never talked about this, you are mistaken. As for how it all shakes out, we'll have to wait and see, but we will have to cross that bridge eventually. This is a massive moment in history. And as a consequence, after not having done a health-related interview in at least 18 months, I decided to reach out to vaccine researcher Elizabeth Hart in an interview I recorded at the weekend that will air this evening at 7 p.m. on the appropriate networks. What I'd like to do as we go out today is play you a clip from that interview to whet your appetite for tonight. Here is where we are going in Australia.
Before about compulsory medicine, and I think it's really important here to look at the Constitution. That there's a section in the Constitution, and one of the clauses in there is about conscription, and it was put in there by Robert Menzies. There was a referendum back in the 40s, and this was about not conscripting doctors. And this is very important to look at now. I've been raising this, and a constitutional lawyer with the government responded to me on this. I think we've really got to look at it. Now, I don't really want to get bogged down in the legal side of things, because as we've seen through COVID, the legal system is not for the people at all. The people can't afford the legal system. They've got the might of, long pockets and governments behind them. So it's very difficult. We need to get this out in the court of public opinion. And we've really got to look at the way that the medical profession was conscripted. In fact, everybody was conscripted to support this COVID rollout. And that goes for the army. You think about that was COVID Shield, was the army was involved in this. And I'm saying the whole lot of them have betrayed the people, that there was an agenda to get everybody vaccinated. Whoever's running this show, the puppets, we're the puppet, or the puppets who are running this for the government was the puppet. But the whole international situation of who is running all of this, who was Morrison, answering to. And we've got a vision of Morrison doing a presentation to the World Economic Forum on digitalisation. So we know that this is beyond government. That government is just down in this whole house of cards. So we've got to look at that. But I think conscription is very, very important, because the medical profession did get drawn into this, that they were giving these vaccines without question, and we've got to bring this out. I'm sort of just working on an article on that at the moment, to get that. We really need to get that out there about how this happened.
That is crucial information once again. But when you bring up the idea of conscription, and therefore it becomes a constitutional issue, then at least it provides the scope that there can possibly be some form of legal challenge. Well, that interview in full from 7 p.m. this evening, you'll find it on my Substack. Go to channel51.com.au and anr.news as well. And you can check them out on X or online directly. Well, it's been a very big first edition of the brand new updated Channel 51 News. Thank everyone for watching. We'll